Howdy doody everybody, my name is Rocky and today I'm coming at you with my first ever White Star review. We just finished our 10th White Star and I thought I haven't put out a Hades Star video in a while, so I'm going to go ahead and critique basically how this White Star went for us. Now we did ultimately win, but I gotta say it was a fight to the end. Absolutely, I'm going to talk about that. But the first thing I want to do is give a big shout out to Scorpionauts for giving us a run for our money. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to time lapse this real quick. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up by 20 times, show you guys the overall White Star itself that happened here, and then sort of, I guess, look at both sides of the map. Now, the unfortunate reality of the White Star reviews, replays, is that you can't look at the modules in the replay in terms of what each ship is wearing, it seems, and I can't pause it. It does ultimately count, I think every second is a minute in this replay, but I can't pause it and I can't rewind it just a little bit. So it's probably going to require some finagling here to basically really break this down for you guys. But I gotta say, I gotta say again, rather, that this was certainly one of the funnest White Stars I've had in a little bit here. So that was it. That was it. We're going to start back up. So the first thing I want to talk about, now I'm going to try not to give too much of our corpse strategy away here in terms of how we plan things. But I don't think I can, because our strategies are ever changing in terms of what we're doing and how we're positioning and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not overly concerned about giving anything away, but I think it's important to see the differences in how the other corpse set up opposed to ours. Now, I got a big shout out to Scorpionauts for the run of the money that they gave us, and I'm gonna try not to badmouth them. It's nothing but respect for you guys. I'm hoping that if you guys happen to come across this video, you'll find that I'm literally just giving my advice or my opinion on the situation itself and what things could have been done better. So at this point in the game, we are, a few hours till launch, and we've already picked out where we're going to position ourselves and stuff like that. And primarily, I think on this deployment, we were overly defensive, which ended up being a really good thing against these guys, because I found that they came out pretty aggressive at us. And yeah, you're going to see it in the replay here. So what we start off here is, you play with the interceptors the best you can in terms of dragging them around, and you're going to see this here with one of our assassins, Big Boy Ganon. Big shout out to Ganon for getting the most squishy kills on our team on this one. So you'll notice he drags it to a certain point, and he's going to bring it down towards the enemy there. Now, one thing I want to talk about is you're going to find our ratios on our side of the team. We're pretty much 4 to 6, 4 trans and 6 minor, and there was a bit of a plan for that in terms of we found a lot in the past White Stars that you get into certain matches where it isn't so much about who's got the bigger balls on the battlefield with the battleships. It came down to who efficiently mined their stuff and got the transports to get the relics out, because it's not always about, like I said, the biggest balls on the field. It comes to a lot of smarts on how you mine your sectors, where you mine your sectors, and where you're sending your transports. So we came out with a 6 to 4 ratio here, and you're going to notice everything is on our backline in terms of our squishies. Right here, one of our guys did step out of line in terms of guarding this from rockets, but it wasn't overly bad because Scorpionauts didn't essentially run straight left. They were coming up the middle, so even if they shine rockets from here, we could probably deflect them pretty well. So anyways, we screened our potential rockets pretty well, and we grouped up, and we were going to position ourselves in a very defensive way. But then we quickly noticed, you're going to notice they're encroaching on us pretty quickly here. They were coming out really aggressive at the start. And so I think the biggest downfall out of the gate, on top of them being really aggressive on the right hand side, was the fact that Ganon had a wide open path here to squishies that were basically unguarded. And so I'll talk about that a little more when I talk about their side of things. So going back to us being defensive here, they came at us pretty well with some assassins. A couple of these guys had teleport, I think, and you're going to notice I back up here instead of fully engaging them. And the reason I did that is because this guy had a strong teleport game going on, and I prematurely popped barrier here because I didn't want him to come over here. So you're going to notice we sort of take care of him in terms of EMPing, and I move up here to get my barrier ready for any potential teleports that could happen coming down the line. So the thing that I loved that we did here was everyone almost pretty much stayed on point in terms of what we were guarding. Everyone effectively went to their posts, and yeah, again, coming at us pretty aggressive here, and it unfortunately led to some of our assassins getting by pretty easily because they came so aggressively to us. And yeah, what more can I say about this? I think one thing that we learned from this is that the corner planet really gets you stuck in the corner if someone comes at you real hard. So at this point, we had done most of our mining, and we were ready to drop off to get those relics pumping on what is level 10. Actually, I probably should have started off by saying what each planet was. Again, first White Star review. I'll sort of template this a little better, I think. So we had a level 10 up here and a level 5 down here for us. And you're gonna notice we parked our lower level back at the gate. That's, again, from past experiences of people trying to, you know, rocket the gate or whatever it may be. You want to have someone lay back and sort of protect your gate, from what we've learned at least. So you're gonna notice we popped a barrier because of the potential teleport coming in. So what you can do, what we found is the way we sort of prevent teleport from being a super big threat is you eliminate the asteroids in those sectors, because at that point the only option this person would have would be to teleport to the planet, which they cannot because the barrier's popped, and you've got lots of squishies that have barriers, which ultimately keeps that barrier up. So it really, you know, knocks down the potential threat. And so one of our guys stays on top of him, and he basically hightails it backwards. I'm not sure if that was the best move on his part. Ultimately, I think the teleport should have came over here, or the movement should have came over here, but he was running away. So, yeah. So we get our relic, we get our miners in place, get our relics going. I'm sort of sitting here waiting for something to come across. Now you'll notice I'm not actually sitting on an asteroid or anything. The asteroid's been gone, but I've got a clear path here for anyone who tries to come up the middle, which ultimately ends up happening. So, actually, talking about this out loud really eliminates the need for me to replay this or pause it at this point. Over here, this guy's coming from my miner, but I do happen to slip away. And basically this is where they're going to try and come at us, because we have all these relics here, and this would probably be their best bet to get us and end our game right here. And at this point in the game, 2 days in, they're pretty pissed off with us because of how many squishies our assassins have killed. And again, I will come to that when I review their side. So we have a couple transports here that break right, which I was ultimately a little frustrated about, but it ended up being a good thing. So I do apologize for the people that I was bad talking in the Discord here. But ultimately, we have a couple transports that break right because this guy's is coming in. Ultimately, you know, he's coming in. I've stopped this guy from moving in with a barrier. He's going to get mowed down, and he could teleport. But instead of teleporting to the planet, which I find peculiar, he teleports south. So this strategy I didn't quite understand, because he could have easily teleported here, waited for the EMP to wear off, and been free to run, because there was nobody really to stop him. I was already on my way down here. I guess there was one technical battleship on his way in. Chaos here was on his way in. So I'm not sure about this move here. So anyway, we still got a battle going on up here as our squishies are moving in, but they're being stopped by a barrier, and our guys are taking care of them. So because we played such a strong defensive game, you're going to notice that even though we were outnumbered, I think we were outnumbered. I'll have to review the numbers once I rewind it here. We happened to take care of the threat pretty well. Anyways, our two transports that broke right instead of sticking with the pack. One of them does get mowed down here, but the other one happens to slip away, which is amusing enough. And I think the reason he may have slipped away is because this person stopped moving, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just take a gander here. No. Yeah, that was a bit peculiar. He came this way, but we got a barrier in place and he couldn't move. So again, the movement choice, I'm not sure on this one. I think he probably definitely could have definitely taken care of that transport. Problems going on at the gate that got taken care of by our low level, which was awesome. He got his first BS kill. I'm not sure if Poke, this was your first first White Star or second, whatever it may be, but good job. And anyways, we've got lots of squishies up here, and we've got some threats coming in. So anyways, this one of our transports takes off and beelines, and he's going to sort of do a roundabout here, which again just blows my mind that he lived through that. But anyways, so coming up through here, what did we do to stop this guy? I don't think we actually did do anything to stop him, because at this point the barriers were all gone and the EMPs were all popped, if I'm not mistaken. So right about here is where we start to lose all of our miners, because again the barriers were gone and the EMPs were used. Yeah, here we go. Okay, there goes one transport, and there goes the squishies. He launches a rocket. And so at this point, it's looking pretty grim. You know, we've got one relic to go. But then I sort of forgot about what was going on with Chaos's transport down here. So this worked out really well for us. But again, not following us directly back, which is a bit perplexing. Because even though I believe this person had Bat, if they would have followed... actually, there's probably not much they could have done, to be honest. So... So yeah, at this point I started launching rockets down at their squishies, trying to collect from their level 10 planet, which didn't go really well for them, because basically the rockets kept them off the planet and ultimately ended up killing one squishy. But the rocket spam is still a very real thing that you've got to watch out for. You've got to have your battleships in place to protect against those rockets. So yeah. So at this point, I think it's pretty safe to say that we had one transport with a relic coming in. We had a barrier in place. There wasn't much they were going to do about that relic. But actually, thinking back about it, maybe that guy was trying to get to Chaos's transport, which ultimately didn't work out for him because he ended up getting mowed down. And so that is basically how we ended up getting 2 relics to the home base. And you're going to notice that we did win 2-0. So the next thing we're going to switch gears and talk about, or critique rather, what the other team could have maybe done a little bit better. So moving over to the Scorpionauts side of things, basically, if we talk about the deployment of how they came in, guns a-blazing, if I will, talking about the squishy orientation that they had, or sorry, the squishy lineup they had, from what I can tell, they didn't actually have all their squishies come in, which is kind of peculiar. I'm not sure if someone fell asleep. They did have 10 battleships out the gate, but I see 1, 2, 3 transports and 1, 2, 3, excuse me, 3 miners. So there's a 4th miner. Again, we've got 4 squishies. I don't know exactly what happened, why they didn't bring in their full 10, but anyways, you're going to notice here a lot of aggression coming out the gate. They sent probably a good 6 battleships, I think, 4 for sure right here, and then I think ultimately they end up sending 6 north. But they've got bad alignment here when it comes to protecting their transports. I also noticed that they killed the interceptor instead of dragging it, which ultimately didn't really do much for us anyways. So it's not overly bad that they did that, but they probably could have played that a little more in terms of basically dragging it up to our squishies and making us deal with it, because there is a point here where we do drag another interceptor and it does force them to deal with it. So anyways, you're going to notice here the battleship stops. So coordination didn't really quite happen with this, I don't think, but it really left this battleship exposed, this transport exposed, and all these miners setting their waypoints without any jump points in between. Actually, this guy did. But this miner just a straight beeline that basically allows for no error or no ability to stop that 19-hour move in the event that something is inbound, which it ultimately was. So that's a big problem, is you don't want to do this in White Stars. And what I mean by this is set waypoints that are hours and hours out. You always want to set small jumps in between. So anyways, at this point, you guys know the story here. Our assassin is coming in. These guys are unguarded, and it's going to make for a real mess here with the Delta Shield and mass battery. And there's the interceptor coming in straight behind here. Looking at the battleships, we still got the 4 and the 5 coming up, being super aggressive with us. And this transport sitting here instead of, you know, going to the closest 10 and 5 planet, I guess they were hoping that they'd get at this level 5. I'm not really sure what the idea behind that transport sitting there was. Miners going away at what they do best. And ultimately, here we go with the Slaughterfest. Here comes Ganon inbound. They've got this battleship tried to deal with them, but it was way too slow. This is hilarious. This cracks me up. Here we go. 1-time warp, 2-time warp. And do we have a third? Third time warp. So ultimately, time warp not really helping when the enemy is around you, because you're going to give them added movement speed as well. So you guys got to keep that in mind. And again, backline not guarded at all. We got two guys sitting on the planet for some reason guarding this. And again, we've got 4, 5, 6 battleships moving up to be super aggressive with us, and nobody here to deal with the assassin. And Ganon just had a real field day with these squishies. So I guess this person decided he was going to try and mop up a little bit. But then you guys know what happens with these 6, so I'm not going to talk a whole lot about them. But here, I think this solidifies my thought that they were going to try and drag that transport to the 5, which is kind of risque because of how close this was to our ship hole. It's interesting that they would try to go for this 5 and try and slip one past us. I'm not sure what the thought is there. Focus on your own planets first, and then try and steal relics off the other side's planets if you can. But anyways, here comes another trans coming in. I'm not sure if that's... I'm going to have to rewind this a bit to see if that's one of the ones that got destroyed. Interceptor sort of sitting there doing nothing, but it does leave them to deal with that. And we have our other assassin coming down and dragging that interceptor down towards their ship hole, which could be dangerous. So again, you know, he throws on his impulse and goodbye 3 squishies. Not much they can do about that. So it's so important to play defensively in White Stars as it is important to play offensively. Sorry, did I just say defensively twice? Defensively as well as offensively. Because if you've got no one guarding your backline and you get an assassin back there, it can be a disaster, especially with mass battery. So transport is sitting there waiting for a relic to spawn. And I guess the idea is that we'd be too busy to do anything about this. But anyway, Ganon's got his sights set on the transport now that he's dealt with all the squishies back here. And this transport that's sitting up here ultimately could have been sitting on this planet where it was being guarded by 2 battleships instead of going up here. So it does kind of leave this one very vulnerable to this assassin because we had masked battery on this assassin. So that's it's really unfortunate. When it comes to dealing with mass batteries, you have to have 3 battleships to deal with that assassin because it can target up to 3 targets at once. So you got to make sure you've got enough people to deal with a mass battery if it gets onto your back line. So here comes the interceptor, and it's going to force these guys to deal with this. These 2 guys, I guess, specifically have decided they're going to deal with it. But here's another problem. This battleship set its waypoint for a 16-hour waypoint. So Ganon's going to wait for him to coast on by because he can't stop that movement because it's so large. It's going to force the transport to make a move, and our assassin's just going to deal with it. It's, again, setting large waypoints doesn't help anybody. You can't stop that movement once you set it. So unless you've got teleport, then you could have teleported backwards and been a bit different there. But it's really unfortunate that this big beeline was set because that left this transport defenseless. Ultimately defenseless. So again, at this point the interceptor's been dragged down, and our assassin has gone stealth, so he's lost aggro from the interceptor, and he can ultimately move away, and the closest target to him is going to get aggro. So here comes Ganon. Now he was more focused on our transports being guarded than it was to take out this transport, because ultimately this transport wasn't a huge threat at this point. And see, here comes they had to deal with this. They had to deal with the interceptor at this point. So this guy's going to sit here and have to deal with this for the next few hours. And they've brought in a couple more transports down here, and we do have another assassin prowling around because Ganon's up here. So yeah, there's our transport that gets destroyed. And I was forced to make a large move here. But yeah, At this point in the game, the miners were kind of pointless because we were so deep in, you know, a day and 18 hours. You've probably got about a relic and a bit to load if you get something on a planet at this point. So these two transports were going to try and get to the level 10 planet, which ultimately was probably their best and only choice at this point. Brought in another transport. I think at this point it would have been best to EMP N64. Let's see what happens. Nope, he follows him. I don't remember what happens with this battle. So they start bringing back in more squishies, but nothing really around to guard them, ultimately. So at this point, we see the transports coming in, and that's when we decided to start rocket spamming that planet because it's wide open. Nothing's sitting there blocking rockets. And so when you want to deter somebody from a planet, just put a bunch of rockets towards it. So anyways, he time warps, and what else we got going here? So the rocket spam keeps them off the planet. We've got an assassin coming on their backside here, which ultimately cuts them off. Does he stop with this? Whoa, why did that guy turn? Interesting. I'm not sure. Holy beeline. Oh, he was going to try and run here. Oh, I forgot to mention Void's Destiny. I'm so sorry. We did have a miner that destinied here and knocked off some of the shield of a battleship. So that was pretty dope. Yeah, it prevents them from loading anything here. And none of their transports are moving to this level 5, which ultimately would have been the demise because of our assassins. And another assassin moves in since we have nothing to guard up north. And yeah. Yeah, and it's just it's havoc for these guys because they didn't leave a whole lot to defense or strategize where they were going to sit with their battleships to guard their squishies. They ultimately got shut out. We won 2-0. A lot of in my opinion, a lot of faults came from no defensive backline. Long waypoints being set. There was a couple times where the long waypoint did them bad, as well as not coming in with all 10 squishies. I'm not really sure what happened there, if they were just short on funds and couldn't bring those ships in, or whatever the excuse may be. They did ultimately give us a hell of a run for our money with the aggression that they brought to the table, and I gotta say it was a lot of fun. But in closing, those would probably be my biggest observations when it came to deficiencies. For us, in terms of what we could have done better, I mean, internally there was a couple times where people weren't responding to moves that they should have made, which, I mean, is going to happen. People have lives. This is intended to be, you know, super involved, and it's not meant to be, you know, super serious. So there's no real fault there. In terms of strategy, you know, I think we reacted really well to an aggressive attack. We had our positioning laid out. We dealt with the interceptors really well. And I think ultimately the things that we got to work on is our mining, our mining and our transports, getting our crunches and our Genesis down path, and loading up those relics a little better. It's pretty fine-tuned at this point, but I think we could do a little better on that portion of things. Defensively, we did really well. I think aggressively, our assassins did amazing. Ganon just ripped up, you know, N64, and the other guys did really well in being aggressive when the time came, not being super aggressive out the gate. Anyway, I don't have much more to say. Thanks for listening to me ramble a bit. I hope I made some valid points in terms of constructive criticism and things that could have been done a little bit better, things that were done really well. And yeah, I will. I'm going to try and structure this a little better if I do this again. And hopefully they add some pause and rewind features to the replay screens to help me out a little bit. And if there's something that you think that we could have done better or the other team could have done better, let me know in the comments down below, of course. I do appreciate it. And yeah, I will catch you guys in the next video. We saw a trend like this with the nerd block or gamer block, whatever it was. It just progressively got worse, and then they went out of business. So I've jumped ship. I'm not saying they're going out of business. I'm just saying I don't like to pay for a product and not get it for well over 30 days, you know, 35